This is News 3 at 4.
It's been 1 year since a 6-year-old student shot his teacher inside of a Newport News classroom.
We are out here at Richneck Elementary, and there has been a shooting. A student is in custody. A teacher is in the hospital.
Was this shooting intentional or accidental?
This was not an accidental shooting.
When you became a teacher, did it ever cross your mind that a student would do this to you?
It's surreal. It's not normal.
Attorneys for the school board and for Abby Zwerner argued their cases on why or why not this should be a workers' comp case.
This tragedy was entirely preventable.
I remember the uncertainty and the range of emotions with parents, and as a parent myself, becoming a bit emotional. This week I found multiple lawsuits from families of Richneck students just filed on Thursday, listing the defendants as the Newport News School Board.
We need to make sure that kids understand that you can't say, quote unquote, I'm going to shoot you.
1 year later, the Newport News School District is operating completely different.
Tomorrow marks 1 year since the eyes of the world turned here to Newport News at Richneck Elementary School when a 6-year-old student intentionally shot his first-grade teacher, Abby Zwerner. Welcome to a special edition of News 3 at 4. I'm Jessica Larche, and for the last year, our team of journalists have covered everything in the aftermath here in the Newport News community. And now, for the first time, the teacher who was shot, Abby Zwerner, is sharing her story with me. It was on January 6, 2023, when Zwerner was sitting at the reading table in her classroom when the student walked up to her and shot her with his mother's gun. Zwerner tells me fragments of the bullet remain in her body, and there are emotional scars you can't see.
When you became a teacher, did it ever cross your mind that a student would do this to you?
You don't go into the education career regardless of what age you're teaching, and in the back of your head, you know, always have that thought of, well, this could be the day someone brings in a weapon to school and just opens up, fires at me. That's not what anyone in the education career should even cross their mind. It's surreal. It's not normal.
But the abnormal happened to Abby Zwerner when her 6-year-old student intentionally shot the 25-year-old first-grade teacher. The bullet barreled through her hand, then chest, causing her lung to collapse.
Did you think you were going to die that day, Abby? Are the bullet fragments still in your chest, Abby?
Yes. Some in my hand and up in my upper left chest.
What has the last year been like for you?
Very hard, troubling, traumatic, mostly downs and not ups. You know, I was diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety has raised, depression has raised, and that really takes a toll on me emotionally. This past year has definitely changed me. You know, how could it not?
Supported by her attorneys, a resilient Abby Zwerner opened up to me as best she could, though she did not want to relive the moment the boy aimed his mother's gun at her and pulled the trigger. And she's still haunted by the moment that followed, when a bloodied Zwerner rushed her other students out of the classroom before she collapsed.
What was that like, getting your kids out of there even though you had just been shot, Abby?
I don't start talking about that day. It's been a year, and this is not something that just goes away.
Diane Toscano is representing Zwerner in her $40 million lawsuit against the Newport News School Board, the former superintendent, former Richneck principal, and former assistant principal. Their lawsuit claims that on the day of the shooting, the assistant principal was warned several times that the 6-year-old boy, who the lawsuit says had a history of choking a teacher and attacking students, may have had a gun. But the lawsuit says the assistant principal would not allow the boy to be searched, insisting that his pockets were too small to hold a handgun.
It was kind of just a slap in the face. Hang tight. The mother will be here soon to pick him up.
The boy's mother, Deja Taylor, is now in prison, serving 21 months on federal charges for lying about her marijuana use when she bought the gun. and she'll serve another 2 years in prison on state child neglect charges from Newport News.
Do you feel that's justice? What was your thoughts when she was sentenced to prison?
I trust the court system. That's what I'll say. I trust the court system.
Do you think justice stops at the mother going to prison?
No.
Zwerner says a victory in her lawsuit would be a victory for teachers everywhere, especially since attorneys for the Newport News School Board have argued she's only entitled to workers' compensation, saying in court filings, in an ideal world, young children would not pose any danger to others, including their teachers. This is sadly not reality.
What was your reaction when you heard that?
I was hurt. It made no sense. It makes no sense.
While Zwerner makes sense of a life apart from the job she loved, she wants her students to know they're never far from her heart.
What do you say to your kids, to your babies?
I hope they know at the least that I miss them, never have stopped missing them.
Will you ever teach again, Abby?
For now, no, I don't want to go back.
Why did you want to speak with us now?
I feel like it's a good moment, a good time to, come out and share my voice a little bit more.
Is this a part of you gaining your strength back?
I would say so.
Mm-hmm. Becoming yourself again?
Hopefully.
The Hampton Roads community has rallied behind you, has prayed for you. What do you want to tell specifically to Hampton Roads?
Cliche words, but thank you. It's meant a lot. It means a lot to know that I have people by my side, to know that I have people who believe in me. We still have kindness in the world.
Is that what gives you hope?
Yeah.
Zwerner tells me she's taken on a part-time job outside of the education field to help make ends meet. The lawsuit is set to go to trial in January of 2025. This shooting has put the issue of school safety in the spotlight. So 1 year later, we're taking a look at what's changed here at Richneck and across the Newport News Public School District.
Things are different now since I went to school right here in Newport News about a decade ago. The old backpacks you see here, they're out. Students are now wearing clear backpacks like this for safety reasons after police say a 6-year-old shot his own teacher. I'm Kelsey Jones, and I spoke with parents following the year anniversary of the shooting that tell me they have mixed emotions when they send their kids off to school.
It has been one of the most horrific calls that I've received.
That horrific call? A shooting at Richneck Elementary School, sending shockwaves through our community.
She said, I'm shot, call 911.
That's LaWanda Rusk. I spoke with the Richneck grandmother this time last year. She was there to pick up her grandkids early from school. Little did she know, she was at the right place at the right time. Rusk reflects on helping Abby Zwerner moments after the teacher was shot by her student.
We only thought it was somewhere on her hand, maybe. But after looking further, she passed out on the floor. And then after looking further, we noticed that there was another gunshot wound.
A year later, much has changed within the district to protect students and staff. One of those changes being school safety policies.
Our goal is to make it difficult for people who want to bring contraband into our schools. And that's just not guns and knives and weapons. It's the vapes and drugs and things like that.
The district approved more than $300,000 for the plan. The district also hired 117 school security officers, in addition to 10 part-time substitute officers. That's a 45 officer increase compared to 2022, costing the school district more than $6.3 million. So with all that money being spent, I was curious to learn more about the security process. Here are some of my questions I have for school leaders. My first question, what happens now if someone suspects a child is carrying a weapon? School leaders say if a principal or another school leader has a reasonable suspicion, they can order a search of that student and their property. The school system tells me that has been the guidance for years. Another question I wanted to know, has this new detection system caught anything yet? And is it working? The weapons detection systems are designed to detect guns and other weapons. Since installation, no guns have been detected. Overall, even with these changes, some teachers believe more needs to be done.
All of that is great. All of that is good. But let's also now work on the behavior aspect, because that's what we need to make sure that kids understand that you can't say, quote unquote, I'm going to shoot you.
Dr. James Graves is a high school teacher and president of the Newport News Education Association. He believes some progress is better than none.
We didn't have resource officers in every middle school. We didn't have resource officers being shared with the middle school, So I see this as a work in progress for us.
It's hard to believe it's already been a year since this shooting at Richneck Elementary. I was here at the scene as all of this happened, and this entire area was flooded with parents. They were angry, they were crying, they just wanted to know, how could this happen? School leaders are hoping that the changes that they've implemented during this past year reassure parents that their kids are safe behind these walls. In Newport News, I'm Kelsey Jones, News 3.
We have continuing coverage of the one-year anniversary of the shooting at Richneck Elementary School on this special edition of News 3 at 4. Coming up, how one Newport News officer remembers the rush to bring kids to safety that day and why for him, the call hit close to home. Plus, we have an update on the number of parents who filed lawsuits against the Newport News school system. That and more when News 3 at 4 returns. You're watching a special edition of News 3 at 4. I'm Jessica Larche here at Richneck Elementary School in Newport News, where today you can hear children playing in the background. But 1 year ago, it was a much different scene when a 6-year-old boy shot his first grade teacher, Abby Zwerner, sending her to the hospital for weeks with lifelong trauma in the aftermath of that shooting. Tonight, we have moments of the aftermath on body camera video from the Newport News Police Department showing the moment officers rushed in to get children to safety. Officer Clark Carter was one of the brave police officers who led the children to safety. He declined to speak to us again for our special coverage now, but when we spoke with him back in May, Carter says the only details he knew once he got the call was that there was a shooting at an elementary school. He says it took dedication and ingenuity to get the kids from their classrooms to the gym safely.
Right, it was nerve-wracking, and we knew we had to get there so we could protect the kids. Our goal was to try to give them something that would take their mind off of what just occurred. My idea was to pretend that we were riding motorcycles, and I got all the kids to put their hands up and pretend they were riding motorcycles, and we were revving our engines and we were rolling down the hallways, and it seemed to help. It took their mind off of what occurred, and they were just playing the game.
Officer Carter also told us this incident was personal for him. He's one of the active threat instructors, and his own kids go to schools in Newport News. He says he responded the way he would want any other officer to respond to save his children. In the aftermath of the shooting, several parents have filed lawsuits against the Newport News school system. News 3 reporter Angela Bohan was here the day of the shooting, and she has an update on the number of lawsuits the school district is now facing from parents.
On that chilly afternoon about a year ago, instead of doing the typical things that grade schoolers would do as they wrap up their school day, students here in Newport News at Richneck Elementary were being shuffled to safety after police say one of their classmates, a first grader, actually shot his teacher while in the classroom. I remember the uncertainty and the range of emotions with parents, and as a parent myself, becoming a bit emotional watching as these moms and dads picked up their children.
You've got a beautiful country, you've got beautiful people, but what's the problem? Guns.
How could we forget that day? This mother spouting her heartfelt frustrations. Some parents soon hired lawyers. I found 6 lawsuits from the families of Richneck students just filed on Thursday, listing the defendants as the Newport News School Board, the former superintendent, as well as the former principal and former assistant principal. The families are each seeking $3 million. Just a few weeks after the shooting, I met Mark Anthony Garcia. He declined to comment now, but we now know he is one of the parents suing. The lawsuit says his son suffered great physical pain and mental anguish though he was not in the classroom at the time.
My son is having, problems going to sleep and crying because he feels like he's not going to be safe.
The suits from families also say previous concerns were ignored and dismissed. And of course, there's the pending lawsuit from teacher Abby Zwerner. I was there as her attorney announced they'd be filing a $40 million lawsuit against Newport News schools.
This tragedy was entirely preventable.
Zwerner's lawsuit trial is scheduled to start in January of next year. Meanwhile, Newport News school system says they have and will continue to have mental health experts available for students who need it. In Newport News, Angela Bohan, News 3.
Our coverage continues on this special edition of News 3 at 4 as we mark the anniversary of the shooting here at Richneck Elementary. My colleague, investigator Margaret Kavanaugh, is taking a deep dive into Deja Taylor, the mother of the 6-year-old boy who shot his teacher. Margaret is taking a look at the gun laws when it comes to buying guns and marijuana. That special report is still ahead on News 3 at 4. The mother of the boy who shot Abby Zwerner, Deja Taylor, is in prison right now on charges connected to her role in allowing this to happen. In fact, her charges put gun laws and marijuana in the spotlight. News 3 investigative reporter Margaret Kavanaugh is taking a deep dive into those charges.
When you go to buy a gun from someone with a federal firearms license, like at Bob's Guns, you're asked to fill out Form 4473. It specifically asks if you are an unlawful user of or addicted to marijuana or other controlled substances.
That's a big thing that a lot of people don't realize, especially in a gun store. We're operating under federal law. So even if the state has, legalized it, if it's still illegal federally, then we have to abide by that. So, as far as the feds are concerned, there is no usage allowed, for marijuana to possess a gun or, even have a concealed carry permit.
After police say a 6-year-old shot his teacher in Newport News, the gun he used along with his mother, Deja Taylor, were thoroughly investigated, and federal prosecutors say authorities found what they called copious amounts of marijuana when they searched her home. Prosecutors used this when charging Taylor. We previously met up with Jimmy Ellenson, Taylor's attorney, who explained her charges.
Possession of a firearm while in possession of marijuana, and then false information on a federal firearms form, which would be concerning marijuana.
He says it's not common for federal prosecutors to file these kinds of gun-related charges associated with marijuana use.
It's generally not marijuana. It's generally other harder drugs. So this is unusual.
But changes to marijuana laws in the state of Virginia may have confused some gun buyers. You can't use marijuana and buy a gun, according to federal law. The owner at Bob's Guns says also too often people are coming into the store smelling of marijuana and wanting to buy a gun.
We're part of a dealer network through, all over the United States, and it's a problem for gun stores everywhere that's dealing with, legal cannabis use.
So while certain aspects of marijuana may be legal in Virginia, it's not federally legal. So when you're filling out forms to buy a gun, make sure you read the fine print. Margaret Kavanaugh, News 3.
Just yesterday, the U.S. Secretary of Education was here at Hampton Roads to talk about infrastructure in our schools. And while he was there, Senator Tim Kaine and Congressman Bobby Scott were here talking about the anniversary of the shooting here at Richneck. And they said there needs to be more accountability when it comes to improved security for schools and gun safety.
We need to be serious about gun safety, and there's a lot of support. People who are against it just need to get out of the way.
I remember meeting with the family members of, students and parents at Richneck a couple weeks after that tragic event. Thank God that the teacher was not killed, but the level of fear that people had about coming to school and dropping their kid off was really palpable, or coming to work as a teacher, a classroom mate, really palpable. But infrastructure dollars, as we heard from the superintendents today, can really help with designs that will make the school building safer and that will give people some confidence.
You've been watching a special edition of News 3 at 4 as we mark the 1-year anniversary of the shooting here at Richneck Elementary School. I'm Jessica Larche, and our coverage continues at WTKR.com, where you can see my extended conversation with Abby Zwerner, what she's saying about the trials she's facing now and her hopes for the future, and her special message for her former students that were with her in the classroom that day. Our special coverage continues on News 3 at 5.